this, and yes, I know the title says this is another Ring of Honor video, something I know most of you don't want, apparently, if you look at the views, but I figured I wanted to talk about this anyways. I wanted to get this off my chest, if you will, as this is the state, the sort of I guess the Sky is Not Falling Part 3, in a way. I might actually call the video that. So, we are now pretty far into the Adam Pearce era, and if you go to the Ring of Honor message boards on Ring of Honor's website, which a lot of people do, and that's where they kind of get the feel for Ring of Honor and their news about Ring of Honor, apparently Ring of Honor is now worse than TNA, which is not true. It's not even close to being true. I've seen at least the first 5 shows now after the, because I saw the 2 Canadian shows, I saw the Dayton show, saw the pay-per-view, and I've now seen the St. Louis show, and I can freely tell you that those 5 shows, I would say, are better than the last 5 U.S. shows that Gabe booked. That these shows, as a whole, are better shows. You wouldn't know that if you went to the boards, because everyone goes nuts. They went nuts the first Canadian show. They came in and said, sucks. And DVD came out. It's pretty good. Great DVD. Second DVD came out, same thing happened. At the show, they all freaked out, oh my god, and turned out to be pretty good. They panned the Dayton show, and the Dayton show is a subpar Ring of Honor show. I will admit that. I have seen that show. It is a subpar Ring of Honor show, and, the only great thing on that is the Tyler Black Samoa Joe match. Then we had the pay-per-view, and the same thing happened at the pay-per-view. Apparently, at the pay-per-view, if you go back and you actually look, there was a lot of reports that the only thing good from the pay-per-view tapings was Tyler Black versus Samoa Joe. Yet, we have now all seen the pay-per-view, and it's gotten mega, well, the vast majority of people have loved the pay-per-view that have seen it, so again, either we are seeing something that they didn't, or they're just being nitpicky little bitches like they usually are, and that's probably the case. Now, I have also seen the St. Louis show. It's not a great show. It's still a very good show, I would say, but it's not a great show. It's your typical, I would say good Friday night show. Of course, I've not seen the Tennessee show, the Nashville show yet, so when I see that, we'll go along, as that was supposed to be, better than the Chicago show. So I imagine that's going to be a great show, if it was better than the Chicago show. Yet still, people are still whining and crying, and I'm wondering if the people that are whining and crying and saying that, Ring of Honor is absolute crap now, or have even seen what Ring of Honor is now. Is it different? Yes. Is it booked different? Yes, it is. There's not, for one thing, there's not 5 matches all trying to be main event quality matches on the shows. Some people don't like that. I understand. But it does make for a better show. It makes for a much better flowing show. Now, are you going to be able to sell a lot of DVDs doing that? That I don't know. But I will say this. Watching those shows, they were much easier to watch than a lot of the shows. And I would put them up against just about anything from, except for the top echelon from this year, Death Before Dishonor and Supercard of Honor 3. Put those shows up against anything else pretty much from this year, as they've all been pretty good. They've all been your average Ring of Honor stuff. It's not like I watch these shows and I'm like, wow, this is still better than TNA, and it's still better than WWE, even with the new storyline booking. Yes, there is now a much greater emphasis, even though there was already storylines in Ring of Honor. They're now pushing those storylines much more. There's, a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of no finishes. There is, but there's not a lot. There's usually about 1 per show. There are run-ins now, but they make sense. Everything that I have seen, for the most part, I haven't seen everything yet, has made sense. Nothing is completely out of whack, I don't think. I think it seems like most of the fans are enjoying what they're seeing. So I think people need to keep that in mind. It just really surprises me, considering the fact that, and I wonder why no one has brought this up and no one has asked this question. Why is it that Gabe leaves, and then magically as soon as Gabe leaves, we get video wires almost weekly, which is something people have been asking for since 2006. And by all accounts, from the people that have been in the cities that Ring of Honor runs, the advertising for the shows has been a lot better. You know, the news wires have been better. All these things that people have griped about that were kind of not about the shows magically improved as soon as Gabe left. Now, I'm not saying that Gabe was the reason why those things weren't improved upon, but I do find it a bit odd that there was a lot of things that were magically fixed as soon as Gabe left. As you know, Gabe had a lot of, Gabe was a great booker, but one of his biggest problems was the fact that, like I said, you'd have 8 matches on a card, and 5 of those matches would try to be main event quality. So by the time you got to the main event, you were like, well, this sucks, or this isn't as good as it should be. You got main event matches that, really didn't feel like main event matches after what you had seen earlier. And I can pretty much say, for the vast majority of what I've seen so far, you feel that pretty much every match is a main event match quality match. Now, the way that they're booking it now, the undercard, you're not getting the, crazy spot fests that you were getting before, which is good, and you're not getting a bunch of, stiff fests either, which is good as well. You're getting a little bit more storytelling in the ring, which is also good. On the undercard, now once you get to usually the last 2 matches, it comes up a notch, and it's more of what we are used to seeing in Ring of Honor. And as long as those 2 matches deliver, I think you're still putting on a great product. And I think a lot of people are losing sight of that. That just because the product has changed to a degree, that it automatically is worse for it. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. I do think that you're seeing a change in the product for a reason. I do think that, in my own personal opinion, watching the product, it does seem more like a televised product, and I do think there's a reason for that. I do think that they're trying to make it as television friendly as they can for a reason. That way, if they do move to television, it will be a fairly, it'll be a fairly good transition. If you really watch the shows, a lot of things that people have been griping about Gabe's booking were all fixed, for the most part. There's still things, that are still there, and a lot of that has to do with, just the talent that they have. But most of those things have been fixed. Now, part of the way of fixing that was you had to tone down some of the action a little bit. Not a whole lot. It's like I said, the wrestling and the storylines are still, I would say, far better than the vast majority of stuff you see in TNA and WWE. And I would say only the storylines are not as good as some of the stuff you're going to see in WWE. Everything else I would say is and that would be the top storylines probably are just a little bit better. But everything else I would say is it's different, but it's still better than what the WWE and TNA have been giving us for 6 years now. It just really shocks me when, and I think it says a lot, when all of a sudden you hear all of these bad reviews from the live shows, and then once the shows come out, the shows are not getting these bad reviews. I can remember at the pay-per-view, the shows got, the pay-per-view taping got pretty much panned by a lot of people. Bradmaster 13 came on here, who went to the show, basically came on and said he thought it was one of the best shows he'd ever been to for a Ring of Honor show. And it turned out to be a really great show. And we didn't even see probably, one of the best matches on the card. So I think that says a lot. I think a lot of people still need to sit back, let everything play out. It's probably going to be 6 months before we really see where everything's going. I think people are getting completely over the top on a lot of the new gimmickry. And all of it that I have seen, a lot of it is to add comedy to the show, which is something that has been, in my opinion, greatly missing since Colt Cabana left the company. You had Delirious for a while who added some comedy, but then it kind of went out the window once he became a heel. Or once they tried to, change up his character because people felt like his character was getting a little too stale. And, you really didn't have that. I mean, you had it in Generico to a degree, you had it in Steam to a good degree, but it was kind of off and on. You didn't have that constant, which you do need in a show. You do need a little lightheartedness. You do need a little fun, because the shows are meant to be fun. They're not meant to be taken completely seriously. It's pro wrestling, for God's sakes. So I would say it was something that was definitely missing, and I think if you look at a lot of the gimmicks that they brought in for the students, Grizzly Redwood is, I would say it's going to make him a superstar, but it makes him different, and it does make him somewhat entertaining, and it brings a little bit more entertainment to his matches. Rhett Titus, I would say, pretty much the same way. And there's a lot of guys that don't have gimmicks. I mean, there's guys that have them. Kenny King pretty much doesn't have one. Let's see, who else doesn't have one? Well, neither of the Kennys really have a gimmick. A lot of guys just don't have gimmicks, so I don't get where a lot of that's coming from. Now, supposedly, Austin Aries now has a new gimmick. I haven't seen it, can't judge on it. I've heard a lot of people say it's very much Austin Star, which I don't mind. I like the Austin Star gimmick. I thought it was actually pretty good. I just don't think TNA knew what to do with it. But, if that's the way they want to go, that's the way they want to go. But you should reserve judgment until you see it. Not just because somebody said it was bad. You should reserve... Now, should you be a little bit more hesitant of it? Yes, you should, without a doubt. But you should at least wait until more and more people see the stuff. I will take an example. The Edison show from this past weekend got panned the night of the show because of multiple run-ins in the main event, which then, the day after, people came on and actually said it was good and that the run-ins actually worked and added to the match, and a lot of people loved it and thought it was absolutely great and fantastic. Other people hated it. So I definitely think that you're going to have a lot of that, and you're just going to have to figure out, what do you like, what do you don't. Some people aren't going to like this new direction. There's no doubt about that, but I don't think it's any worse. I shouldn't say that. I definitely think it's still better than what we're getting from TNA, WWE, and pretty much anybody else in North America. To be honest, I still think it's better than, I still think the wrestling is still better than a lot of stuff that you're seeing in Japan to a degree. They've toned it down a little bit, like I said, to try to, I think, make the main event seem more important and not make people, not burn out the crowds, which almost always seemed to happen on a Ring of Honor show for the main events, which just kind of sucked. And the guys had to, the main event guys had to go out there and kill themselves and, work much harder than they needed to in a main event. And, so I think that is a good sign. We're probably not going to see, and this is another thing that people need to kind of fathom, with the economic times, it's pretty well known, I think, by most Ring of Honor people that, that they said that they were going to have to cut back on who shows up at what shows, that you weren't going to have a lot of A-list shows anymore, and that really the full roster, the full, talent roster as far as A-list talent wouldn't be on all the shows. For that reason, you're now seeing a lot of younger guys, a lot of regional guys be brought in. Most of them, I think, have worked. I think the vast majority of them, a lot of them have already been seen in Ring of Honor before, so I don't think that's a big deal. Another thing that I would definitely give 2 thumbs up with is that the way they're booking now, the women are actually getting time. That's something they seemingly would... They'd get them sometimes with Gabe, and then other times they wouldn't. And at least they're getting time. I'm not saying the matches are great, but at least they're getting time, and if they get time, I think eventually the matches will be very good women's matches. 2 great women's matches, if they're given time. But they have to be given time. They have to be given the opportunity to do that. And it seems, so far, that they are being given the opportunity to do that, and that's a good thing. So, I just wanted to come on here and kind of get that off my chest. It's something that has been bugging me for a while now, particularly after I saw the St. Louis show, which I was like, this isn't nearly as bad as people were saying it was. It's not a great show, like I said, but it's not a bad show either. The 2 main events the main event is good, and the semi-main event is pretty good too, and the opener is pretty good, I thought. And like I said, I haven't seen the Nashville show yet, so we'll have to wait and see there. But like I said, the first 5 shows I've seen, which includes the pay-per-view, I think were as good as any, as the last 5 U.S. shows that Gabe did. And really, you could say the last 5 shows Gabe did, period, and include the Japanese shows, which had far better talent on them than any of, pretty much, I would say, any of, with the exception of the pay-per-view, probably had on it. So I think a lot of people just need to calm down a little bit and at least wait until you see it. Now, some people have seen it, don't like it. Hey, that's fine and dandy if that's the way you want to feel about it. But, I definitely think you're seeing a change in the product. I think you're seeing a purposely change in the product. I think you're seeing a change in the product so that if they go to television, it will be a smoother transition to television. I think that's something people need to keep in mind. I really don't think we're going to see fully what the product's going to look like until probably about 6 months from now. Or not from now, but from once, probably another 3 months. Simply for the fact that I think they're going to see what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. I think they brought in Bushwhacker Luke just to see, okay, will this work? And can we make it work? Can what different things can we do to make things work that we haven't been doing before? I definitely don't think we're going to be seeing as many Japanese talents be brought in for the money purpose, just because of money. I think we'll see some, but they'll probably only be on the bigger shows. And that's probably be about it. And I think fans are going to have to start, looking at the cards and saying, okay, here's the card, and decide if you want to go to the shows. One thing that has been a constant, though, is that people have been saying that more families have been showing up at the events. That is probably a good thing to a degree, and I'm sure that, in my opinion, one of the things that I just have a feeling that happened was that Kerry wanted the show probably to have a bit more look like the NWA Showcase show, for those of you that have seen it. Now, that said, I think the NWA Showcase shows were all booked, and we'll have to see with the new ones that are apparently coming up soon. Very good. Now, I don't think the talent was up to the booking, and I don't think the production was up to the booking, and I think that hurt the show. And I think there was a lot of things that hurt the show, but I think the booking itself was very good, and I think was the type of booking I think most people would like, even though most people did not see the show. And for that reason, I think Kerr said to himself, you know what, that is what I would like my company to look more like. I don't think that was something Gabe would do, and also the fact that it's pretty evident, I haven't seen the shoot interview, but from what I've read from the shoot interview, even Gabe kind of admits that he probably should have been a little bit more open about working with people and taking other people's ideas. Which, for how many, for a year now, people had been saying that he seemed burnt out, and like I had been saying for a while, I thought, Gabe needed somebody else to work with him that he could bounce ideas off of, because it was evident that not that he was necessarily running out of ideas, but that he was trying too hard to come up with ideas, or trying to do new things instead of just doing things, that needed to be done. Sometimes you can overthink things, and I think that was one of the things that Gabe often did, and just didn't do the things that needed to be done sometimes. But, so that's just kind of what I wanted to come on here and just kind of talk about Ring of Honor for a little bit, and the fact that, from what I've seen, I don't see, things have changed from what I've seen, but I don't think they've changed for the worse. I think they just changed. I just think it's a different product. Now, some people might not like that product, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But to say that it is a worse product, I wouldn't exactly go there. I would say it's just a different product. I think it will be a harder product to sell on DVD. I will say that, because your top 2 matches on every show are probably going to have to deliver, and deliver in a big way. and that will probably be a little hard. Except I will say this, 3 months from now, after Pierce has been, Booker for 6 months, I bet you could go back to the 6 months prior, and, and I bet that there's probably just as many good DVDs and great DVDs as there was when Gabe was booking them. They'll just be different, and I don't think different is necessarily bad. A lot of people have been complaining a lot of things about Ring of Honor, and there was a lot of people that had watched Ring of Honor, said, I can see where it's good, except that, they had their complaints. And I think a lot of what Adam has done as far as booking has kind of addressed some of those complaints. Is that good or bad? We'll have to wait and see. But from what I've seen, I don't think it's either. I think it's just kind of neutral. I think that you were here, and I think that basically Adam came around and booked, and instead of being here or here necessarily, you're just here. You just went over and went on to a different path. So I would just tell people, just wait it out. If Ring of Honor comes to your town, I would still recommend going, because I still think you're going to get a much better show than what you will get from WWE or TNA. You're not going to get the stars, but hey, you were never going to get the stars. But I still think you're going to get a better show, and I think that is what you pay to see. I think you get paid to be entertained, and there you go. I'm out. Have a good one. Later.